Hello everyone, it's Seiji, and today I will be talking about yaoi, and I also would like to ask your opinion because I don't know. Honestly, I have no idea, and I am just looking for some answers. So yeah, I'll just start talking about this. Yesterday, I uploaded a video which was about a manga haul. I mentioned the title called Depth of Field, which is about two boys who bond over photography and start getting closer because of that. And someone commented saying that I should stop buying yaoi because it fetishizes gay people and that it makes them and men who love men uncomfortable. And I totally get where this person is coming from, because being black and seeing some pieces of manga in which black people get fetishized, yeah, it's not great and it makes me cringe a lot, so I totally get this. I just thought it would be helpful to make a video about this because I do kind of need some help. Here's the thing, I don't want to fetishize people, but I also don't want to exclusively read manga about straight people, because to me, choosing to exclude LGBTQ plus stories from an entire medium doesn't seem like a good solution either. So essentially what I'm trying to say here is that I'm just looking for manga with good gay rep that doesn't fetishize the characters or their relationships. I figured it would be good to define a couple of terms before really getting into this. So there are three terms that often get thrown around when people are talking about homosexual relationships in manga, namely yaoi, boys love or BL, and shonen ai. Before the 70s, shonen ai, which literally translates to boys love, was used to refer to sexual interest or relationships between adult men and adolescent boys. However, starting in the 70s, this term started getting used to refer to manga that was targeted at young women and girls that featured boys in love with complex storylines and without explicit scenes. These early shonen ai titles started to lose their popularity towards the end of the 80s when yaoi started to become popular. And this is the type of manga that really shows all of the sexually explicit stuff. The thing that makes using these terms so confusing is because they are used differently in the West compared to Japan. Due to the loaded history of the term shonen ai in Japan, it now usually gets referred to as boizu rabu or boys love or bieru BL. And that is because this loan word sounds more neutral. However, boys love in English is not a foreign term, and so in the West, boys love usually gets referred to as shonen ai, seeing that this foreign Japanese word sounds more neutral. Then on top of that, yaoi in Japan refers to the manga that is sexually explicit. However, here in the West, it gets used as an umbrella term. Being someone who in the last few years has gotten to know a lot about the publishing industry and also about the way that manga gets marketed in the West, I have found that if the story heavily features a homosexual relationship, this title either gets categorized as yaoi or LGBTQ+. And there doesn't seem to be a clear distinction between the two. It seems like for the most part that they can be used interchangeably. Other than, of course, that LGBTQ+ can also contain yuri titles. Anyway, because of this lack of distinction, it gets really hard to, I guess, use these terms when you're discussing things. So for the sake of this video, I have decided to just loosely follow the lines of publishing and use yaoi as an umbrella term and add nuance where nuance is needed. Now, let's move on to the thing about yaoi that makes people so uncomfortable. My experience is that it's the popular tropes and the way those influence the fan base. There are many messed up tropes within yaoi, such as assigning men heteronormative gender roles, also giving them a tragic ending such as suicide, and also apparently rape fantasies are a thing. I don't think I need to explain specifically what's wrong about these tropes, so I'll just move on to the influence that they have on the fan base. Like I said before, the target audience for yaoi is mainly young women and girls. And since all these popular tropes are so messed up, what you'll find within the fan base is this thing of equating fictionalized, inaccurate representation of homosexual relationships to real ones. And of course, people can say, well, I'm big brain and I read yaoi and I know it's fiction, so this doesn't affect me. Which, okay, sure, but this equating often happens subliminally. It creates unconscious bias, which really doesn't help LGBTQ plus folk. I'm not a gay man, so I can't tell you specifically about their experiences, but I can tell you it's not great being fetishized in general. Really would not recommend it. I have experienced being fetishized myself and my relationships as well by strangers. Imagine yourself just trying to live your life, but there are people out there who constantly need to notify you that you are in fact black and the person you are dating is in fact not black. Wow. Shocker, I know, right? And on top of that, these people just need to tell you their assumptions that they have over specific parts of your relationship that are none of their business. And they also need you to confirm those assumptions because that would absolutely make their day. I can tell you that this gets old real quick. And so now we have come to my crossroad because not all yaoi fetishizes gay men. I, for instance, quite recently read a manga that was branded as yaoi, and it was about two young men who bonded over eating food together, and that friendship slowly developed into a relationship. And there was no abuse, there weren't any deaths, it was just wholesome vibes all the way through. And so because Western publishing essentially relegates all male gay titles to yaoi, that has got me thinking, is it the genre that offends? Or do people look at it case by case, judging each title on its own? Because if I say that I am reading a romance manga about two gay guys bonding over photography, does that mean that I am fetishizing gay relationships? Or is it the fact that I said that this title was branded as a yaoi that offends people? Because with said volume, that is all the information I know and also gave. And you know, I'm totally fine with someone saying like, hey, this particular title that you picked up, it has a lot of stuff in it that's just wrong, and several others don't have great representation either. So here are a couple of titles I would recommend to you. But telling me to stop buying an entire genre that is so incredibly ambiguous without suggesting an alternative other than just stopping to read LGBTQ plus manga altogether is like, well, what do you want me to do then? I actually quite often receive criticism when it comes to reading. I don't know if it's just me, but a lot of people tell me that I'm not reading diversely enough. I get stuff like I read too much Japanese stuff. I should also consider reading Asian literature that isn't from Japan, which for the record I do. I get told that I read a lot about racism towards black people, but I should know that there are also other people of color out there. And I get even this whole thing of I read too much books with regards to racism. Why don't I read like popular science books? And I get that not all of this criticism that I receive is founded because I don't know, like I get stuff like people telling me that I should get shot. So You know, I try to, for the most part, take most of the stuff with like a grain of salt, but on the other hand, I don't want to create content that makes people uncomfortable. So I try to be as mindful as possible with regards to that. I will say though, I try to do my research when it comes to picking up new literature, and I'm not interested in reading literature in which gay men are fetishized. I'm just looking for a good story I can gush over, the same way that I do over manga that features straight characters. Besides the whole terminology and categorizing things, the thing that makes it quite tricky also finding good titles is due to the fact that manga doesn't really get reviewed as much as books do, and so there are far less own voices reviews out there, especially when you're looking at titles that don't have an English translation. Another thing I guess that makes it quite hard to find really good titles is because Japan doesn't really have something like own voices you can look for to find good rep. A lot of mangaka's identities are unknown as well, and on top of that, same-sex relationships aren't widely accepted within Japan, so you don't really often see mangakas coming out and saying that they're gay or bisexual or anything else. And trust me, I have been looking for them. The only ones that I managed to find that specifically pertained to gay men were actually all by the same mangaka, by Gengoro Tagame. So that's this series, My Brother's Husband, and then this recent manga that got translated to the German, Unsere Farben. And yeah, that's it really. I tried looking for more of Tagame's work, but it's like really erotic, and that's not something that I'm particularly interested in. So yeah, I guess that's kind of like everything that I had to say with regards to this topic. Please do leave your opinions in the comment section below, and if you have any suggestions, any recommendations, I would love to hear them. Anyway, that's everything I had to say. Thank you very much for watching. If you like the content that I make, perhaps consider supporting me over on Patreon or getting me a coffee, maybe, I don't know. You can also just support me by liking, subscribing and commenting. Like I said already, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in another video.